Here we go. Today is a brand new day. I refuse to limit my life by any past experience. I was born to be happy, to be abundantly supplied with every good thing, to have fun in living, to grow, and to consciously align the divine power within me with the divine power around me. I boldly claim my birthright. Today is the best day ever. That's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Is just exactly what this thing talks about. Principle is never bound by precedent, except. See, that's the thing about all-inclusives, they ain't. Principle is never bound by precedent, except in our own consciousness. We have the capacity to bind anything, because that's how consciousness works. So we're going to talk today, Thomas Troward. I love me some Thomas Troward. He's like the only judge I can get next to so far. When we realize that all the spiritual power there is at our disposal, we no longer are bound by the old ways of thinking. Thomas Troward. So what he's telling us is we have it in us. When we get that, we know we are completely free to use it. What blocks it is all of the messages that we tell ourselves. And we have a lot of them. That's just how it's always been. We've always done it this way. Ever since human beings have been around, we've had war. People are always in disagreement about something. Listen to the socialized messages that we hold dearly and begin to question, why do I hold on to that so tightly? What's that about? And most of the time, it's about completely unconsciousness. Most of the time, we don't even hear what we're saying. Okay. I was sharing earlier, it's no secret that I have a brat element. And I used to manage a fast food restaurant back in North Carolina. And back east, we get thunderstorms that come out of nowhere. It can be as bright and sunny as it is right now, and 30 seconds later, it can be raining so hard you can literally take a shower and wash your hair. And people hear what they expect to hear. And so it could just bust up a thunderstorm, and I could come running through the front door and go, "It's raining like crazy and your windows are up." And people would run outside in the rain. And they would come back in and go, "My windows are up." I'm like, "I know, I told you they were." We hear what we are programmed to hear. And so how often, when you're affirming something, is your subconscious denying that and affirming what you've been trained to think, and you're completely unaware that that's even happening? Because that's where we get bound. Okay? So let's take this thing apart. Because the truth of the matter is, the law works the same way every time. That's what principle is. Principle is something that every time you use it, it works exactly the same way. Every time. Okay? Gravity, every time you let go of a solid object, it is going to fall. Period. Happens every time. Don't believe it? Just spend the next week trying it, and preferably not with someone's head underneath the object that you're dropping. Right? So understand that principle is predictable. It is certain. It is mechanical. And you can trust it. Let's take apart this idea of precedent. Because precedent is where we get hung up. Precedent evolves from our experience. The best story that I've ever heard about precedent, it's in, I don't know where it originated, but the first time I saw it was at the front of the book, it was back in the 70s, Born to Win. And it talks about a friend is over at her girlfriend's house and they're fixing dinner. And she's cooking a pot roast. And so she takes the pot roast out of the refrigerator, lops off both ends of it, puts it in the pot, seasons it up, puts all the vegetables in there, tosses away the two ends. And her friend is like, what's that about? Why cut off the two ends and throw away perfectly good part of the roast that you paid for? And her friend was like, I don't know. That's just how we've always done it. So she went back to her mom and said, how do you cook a pot roast? And her mom went through the whole thing. You get out your pan, you get out your roast, you cut off both ends, you put it in, she went through the whole list of seasonings and the vegetables, and then, you cook it for X amount of time. And her daughter was like, why do we cut the ends of it off? And her mother thought about it, and she's like, because that's just how we do it. So her mother went back to her mother. So now we're 3 generations back. And her mother's like, Mom, why do we cut the ends off of a pot roast before we cook it? And her mother busted up laughing. And she's like, no, really, I'm not sure why that's so funny to you, but why do we do that? And she's like, because when I was cooking for you, I had one pan, and it was only this big. And every roast I got was bigger than the pan. And so I had to cut off both ends of the roast in order for it to fit in the pan and cook it. And yet 3 generations later, we're still lopping off the ends of the roast and throwing away a good piece of meat for no apparent reason. That's how precedent works. We have an experience. We take it as this is how it is without ever exploring, are there other options? And then we pass it on from generation to generation to generation. How much of what you do on a daily basis is not conscious, is from someone else, and might just be limiting you. Which takes us to the term bound. Now, our English language is an interesting tool because I looked up the word bound and there's 7 different definitions, all very different from, how Tigger bounds right? To somebody's bound to do something, to actually what we're talking about here of being in bondage to something, being limited to something. And so what we're saying is that principle is never bound. Truth is never limited by something that has happened before in this conditioned reality. Now, the power of bound is significant. Now, whether you agree with electrical fencing or not, that's a whole different conversation. But for the sake of exploration, I'm going to use it. I used to have horses back in North Carolina. I was part owner of a breeding and stable. We would start new horses to the stable with an electric fence. And we didn't have to leave that fence on for very long, because what we did was turn the fence on and tie those white grocery bags to the fence. So what happened was the horses began to associate the white bags on the fence with the discomfort of trying to challenge the fence. It only took about a week, and then you can turn the fence off. They see those white bags, and they are instantly bound wherever they are. We could take those white bags when we took the horses to show. We would take white bags and tie them on poles with no fence in between them, and the horses would stay quite comfortably inside whatever perimeter we set up with a pole and a white bag, where they could have easily walked right between the poles and gone wherever they wanted. Their consciousness was bound by their association to those white bags. What is your consciousness bound to? What association is your consciousness bound to? Because if our consciousness is operating in awareness of principle, there is no limitation. It was 1926 when Ernest Holmes came out with his statement, "What I Believe." And initially it started out as "What I Believe." And then we adapted that to our organization, and that's our Declaration of Principles of what we believe. In his original statement, in one of those, and I'm going to make sure I read it so I have it correct. What he said was, "I believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this very goal is sure to be attained by all." Now, we have since taken out the word emancipation and put in the word freedom. And me personally, I'm just speaking for Reverend Rafe, I think that's a mistake. Because emancipation is a process leading to freedom. Taking out the word emancipation changes, for me, what Ernest Holmes was actually saying. Because if I believe in the process of emancipation, that puts a certain level of responsibility on me to participate in the use of principle from a conscious level. And when I do that, I attain freedom. I don't get freedom without the process. And too many of us really are living in that place. So what if we actually treated this process of emancipation the same way we do pregnancy? See, I don't know anybody who's ever been pregnant that has a second thought about whether or not there's going to be the result of a pregnancy. See, people who are pregnant, even the husbands or boyfriends or second wives, nobody's walking around going, "I wonder if we're really pregnant." No woman in labor ever said, "What's happening? I wonder why this is happening, because I wasn't sure I was really pregnant." That doesn't happen, because there is a certainty of possibility. Can we allow ourselves to be pregnant with the certainty of possibility? Now, when we first learn that we're pregnant, there's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of wondering. Will it be male, female? Will it be healthy? What will my pregnancy be like? What's going to happen to my body? How is my life going to change? There's lots of questions, but there is a certainty of expectancy that something will be birthed. Period. Nobody pregnant walks around going, I wonder if I'm going to have a birth. I wonder. It's not how it happens. And yet, when we are working in our consciousness, how often do we rethink, I wonder if this law really is what they say it is. I'm praying, I'm affirming, I wonder if that's really going to happen. Okay. That is an indicator that you don't believe it yet. You don't believe it. And the law works on what you believe. And so if you believe it ain't going to happen, you prove the law by it not happening. And then we look at the law and go, see, it doesn't work, when actually it worked perfectly because you believed it wouldn't work, and voila, you didn't get it. We don't stop and think about that part. What you believe is exactly the experience you create. There is no way around it. The good news and the bad news is that that principle is operating all the time. Doesn't matter whether you're consciously using it or not, you're using it. Because we all walk around with a belief system. And so whatever is in your belief system is operating all the time. If we believe that as long as there are people, there will be war, there will be. If we believe that illness is just a part of being human, illness will continue to exist. Because that's what we are putting into the law. And the law doesn't second guess. And I think that is sometimes the most difficult part for us to get. Because don't we sometimes want something to filter out and correct us? That, and even in our language, well, God knows what I mean. No. God knows, the law knows what you believe because you are that informed. It trusts you as an individualized expression of it to be it. For it to second guess you would be to second guess itself, and that ain't happening. That's the depth of what is in you. Quit expecting something outside of you to do your work. It ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. Now, if there's something showing up in your life that you would like to be different, good. Now you have a jumping off point. And I don't mean jumping off into the abyss. I mean a starting point. We've been talking all month. What is the thing itself? That was the first thing we covered. And so we go back to remember that. It is perfect love, perfect peace, infinite intelligence, infinite abundance. Everything you could possibly ever imagine. It is infinite possibility. Infinite possibility. Which means it is never bound by any limited thinking that I have or that you have. And then we talked about who we are in relation to it. And a lot of us, out of our human comfort zone, I think, are comfortable with God in us. We're comfortable with God through us. And I dare you to risk standing in the power of God as you. Because that's what's true. What would happen if you dared to stand squarely in the truth of it is operating as me? No qualifiers, because that's the basis of what we teach. It's unqualified. Because the only way to prove it is to use it. You're not going to get a telegram. And if you do, I'm going to be really mad because I've been wanting one for 58 years. And if I don't get one, neither do you. But what you will get is a demonstration. What you do get is a demonstration. Because everything you believe is showing up in your life. Stop lying to yourself that something outside of you is doing it to you. Because as long as you keep it out there, you are powerless to change it. And the instant that you own who you are, the truth of who you are, all of the power of the infinite is yours. It's yours anyway. But I don't know I have water in my shower until someone teaches me to turn it on. Hey. How many have had a flat tire? And people are, oh, it's easy to change a flat tire. Well, it is if you know how. And if you don't even know what a jack is, good luck. Okay? Good luck. And that is not specific to women. I know lots of guys that please do not get me stranded with them because they are of no use. None. They can't help me fix it and they can't cook me a meal. So strand me with somebody else. I love you and. Everything you require to live the life you want to live is already available to you. You don't have to wait. You just have to choose differently. And part of that choosing is dealing with unraveling all of the stuff that we were raised to believe. And it's unraveling it. You cannot change it by beating it because your focus is still on it. Okay? I can't get rid of something while I'm focusing on it. Ain't how it works. What I focus on grows. So we have to shift our focus. How do we do that? We understand what it is, that it is me, and then we start claiming it. That I am the love of creation. I am the infinite intelligence of the one. I am perfect peace. I am infinite abundance. Not I have it, I am it. I am it. I am a center of spiritual living. I am a center of spiritual living. Not I go to one, I am one. Because when we start to claim it, everything that contradicts it starts bubbling up for you to deal with. And it might kind of, sort of, maybe get a little uncomfortable. Might. Kind of like pregnancy. Might get a little uncomfortable. You might have some morning sickness. You might have some stretch marks. You might have some pressure on your bladder. You might. Your consciousness is pregnant with possibility. So as you birth something new, you're going to change. Isn't that the whole point? Isn't it? So what if you embrace that? Embrace the change. Love the change. Understand that this doesn't fit is growth. Because, hallelujah, you're out of your comfort zone. Which means you've moved. You've grown. Just like you got comfortable with the old comfort zone, you'll get comfortable with the new one. You will, if you stay there long enough. And as you begin to embrace all of you, I defy you to experience anything other than gratitude. I have had the privilege as an EMT of delivering 2 babies. Blown away. Blown away at the capacity of these women to experience pain that biologically, get this, biologically, there is actually a measurement of pain that the human body can sustain without dying. And delivery exceeds that. It exceeds it a lot. A lot. And yet, she doesn't die. And if you've ever witnessed it, she is transformed from that pain to gratitude in an instant. It's phenomenal to participate in. That's what's available to you. Now, if you notice, what we just went through were the steps of treatment. Why do we use treatment? Because it works. Why do we use those annoying 5 steps that some of us push back against? Because ain't nobody going to tell me how to pray. I've done it. It works. Know what it is. Know that is you. Claim the truth of you. Live in the possibility until you know it with such certainty that you are moved to gratitude, and then let it go. Let it go and live it. Let's take this into prayer. Infinite, infinite, infinite oneness. This source, this principle that is everywhere present, knowing itself, being itself, in every expression of itself, in form. And knowing that to be true, I know that is me. That is all life. Every element is the one in form. And so because we know what it is, we know it is here in form, it must necessarily follow that everything it is in its form. So we stand in that truth. We claim all of it as our own because it is. And we embrace everything that comes up in love and tell the truth to all of the lies of precedent, transforming them into the truth of one. And as we do that, gratitude floods our being, because gratitude is the prayer of recognition. Gratitude is the prayer of knowingness. And so we know it's done in that gratitude. And we let it go. We let it be. I invite you to join me as we say together. And so it is.